Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Abby and I really need to finish some whips. I've got a few projects on the needles that I've been working on for a bit and I really want to finish them because I've got some new exciting projects that I want to cast on. It is summertime. I want to be working on summer knits. Also, I really like watching these types of videos where people are just very motivated to finish their projects and they get it done. And I need that motivation in my life right now. So that's why you're here. Or at least that's why you're here for me. I don't know why you're here for you. Right behind me is where I keep my whips. Up here on this shelf, I have some long-term projects that I'm not focused on right now. And then down here, I have all of my projects that I'm working on and that I want to finish as quickly as possible. So let me walk you through each of the 3 whips that I'm going to be focused on this week. None of them are new to you. You've seen all of them before, but they are pretty close to being done and I really just need to focus on them and knock them out. So first up is this one. This is one of my most unhinged projects. This is a super bulky weight sweater that I'm knitting for my boyfriend. And I really need to finish this because I know that I'm not going to want to work on this as soon as it gets really hot. And we're already approaching like 80s and 90s here. So I really need to finish this. This is a sweater that is knit out of 3 strands of worsted weight held together. And it's really cool. It's very large, it's very bulky. And as much as you would think it would go really quickly, I have been pretty slow to knit this because I just really hate working with 3 strands of worsted weight held together. It's too much. But I am committed to this sweater and I know my boyfriend is really going to like it and wear it a lot. So here's where I'm at. I finished the body and I finished the first sleeve, which is great because I'm working on the second sleeve and I know exactly what I need to do because I'm just going to copy the first sleeve. And I should mention that I'm sort of using the Traveler pattern by Andrea Mallory, but I converted it to my super bulky gauge and I'm also just knitting it in stockinette. So I am referencing a pattern, but I'm also kind of doing my own thing here. All right, so that's where I'm at on the second sleeve. The next thing I'll focus on is the hood, which might take some trial and error at this gauge. And then I also am pretty sure he wants like a front hoodie pocket, so we'll address that when I get there. So I am getting there, but it definitely needs quite a bit of work. And like I said, I really want to finish this as quickly as possible because I know I'm not going to work on this in the middle of summer. Next up is the pair of socks that I'm knitting. These are the 3-ply 2-ways socks that I spun the yarn for and am knitting for Andrea Mallory's spinning challenge. So I finished the first sock and I'm pretty close on the second sock. I got through the heel. These are toe-up socks. These are the DRK Everyday socks. So I made it through the heel and I'm just knitting the leg now. That is about where I'm at. So I've got a few inches on the leg to go and I am kind of running out of yarn. This is all that I have left. So if I need to unravel this leg to match the length of the second sock, that's what I'll do. Hopefully it works out. I do think this is a little bit more yarn than what it looks like, so I might be able to get the full length out of it, but we'll just have to see. And lastly, I am working on a hand-spun Harlow hat. This is the Harlow worsted. And I've made some decent progress on it. This has been on the needles for a little bit now. I mean, I like having some smaller projects like this that I can take with me and work on wherever I'm at. But at the same time, because this has been on the needles for so long, I really do just want to bind it off and get focused on some other projects. Plus, I think it'll be really nice to go into the fall and winter season with a few brand new knits that are completely finished, but that I haven't worn yet. So that's the plan. I do have a busy couple of weeks coming up, so I'm not sure how long this will take me or how long this vlog is going to last, but I'm just along for the ride of where my knitting takes me, and hopefully you're along for it too. I think right now my biggest blocker is the sweater because I'm just over it at this point. So it's what I'm going to start with and just try to get as much done as I can. Because I don't like working on it, I'm not gonna force myself to just work on it for like the entire evening. So at least to get me started and kind of get back in the flow with it, I'm going to start a 30-minute timer and we'll just see how much progress I can make. I don't know, maybe it'll be more progress than I'm thinking, and that would be great because if it is just mental, I know I can conquer that. But if I do have like hours and hours of knitting ahead of me, I might need to rethink some things. But look, in this moment, I'm committed. So 30-minute timer. Here's where I'm at on the sleeve. I'll put a stitch marker in and let's just see how much I can get done. Okay, the timer went off right as I was doing the final stitch of the row, so that was perfect. And look at that. This is totally a mental game. That is a lot of progress made in 30 minutes. So I really just need to focus up, lock in. I will say that my hands are a little bit sore now, so I think I just need to take a little bit of a break and then get back to it. Okay, I'm really glad I did this because I truly couldn't tell if it was a mental block or if it truly was taking me as long as it felt like it was. Anyway, I am going to stretch my hands out a little bit, take a break, and move over to the couch because I need to get comfy. I have almost finished this sleeve. I made it to the ribbing on the cuff and I'm so close to being done. Well, done with the sleeve. I did run out of one of my black skeins. Like I still have the yarn, I just need to wind it up. But in the meantime, to finish the sleeve at least, I am just pulling from both parts of the cake. And I've never done this before. It seems like this could easily be a disaster, so we'll see how this goes for me. By the way, I'm wearing my Pentapillar pullover, and I just posted a project vlog if you want to know more details about it. So I need to decide what bind off I'm going to use. I did not bind off the first sleeve because we weren't fully sure about the length, but I think the length will work, and I just have the stitches on waste yarn, so I need to bind this sleeve off as well. For the cast on at the bottom of the body, I just did the long tail cast on, which I kind of regret because it's such chunky yarn. It's pretty noticeable, and I wish I would have taken more time with that. I'm not really sure why I didn't. I think I wasn't confident that I could get a nicer looking bind off to actually look nice in this gauge, so I just went with the standard. So I have kind of two options here. I could do a nicer looking bind off for the sleeves and the rest of the sweater, or I could do a bind off that matches the long tail cast on. I think the interlock bind off matches it, so I might look into that. I just need to decide. Also, my partner and I were in a yarn store the other day, and usually when we go to a yarn store together, he will just like pick up a skein that he likes and I'll plan to make him a pair of socks. That's just kind of our thing. And this is the yarn that he chose. Are you seeing this? You getting it? He's just having a black and rainbow moment, and who am I to deny that? But as far as sock skeins go for him, this one is like fairly far back in the queue. I am getting a little bit nervous about the hood. Nervous is not really the right word, I guess. Like I'm not concerned about it. Like I know I can do it. I am a little worried that I'll get pretty far into it and realize like the shape isn't working out or something. And as much as I am liking this sweater, I fear that I won't want to keep working on it. I know I've already talked about how I've hit that point, but I I think the second sleeve kind of rejuvenated things for me, and I'm feeling pretty good about it, and I want to work on it now. And I just worry that the hood is going to take that away from me. So we'll see. Like I said, I have my spreadsheet. The math is all done. I might tweak it a little bit, but it should be pretty good. Do you hear that resounding confidence? Should be pretty good. I'm not gonna lie to you, I have knit this sleeve over the course of several days because the Switch 2 came out and I have dedicated my life to Mario Kart World. All I wanna do is win an online game against the children. I've spent hours playing this game and I thought I was decent at Mario Kart, you know? I can win a game or two here and there. And then I played online. I really have never felt so old before. I genuinely feel really old playing Mario Kart World. I would just like to make it in the top 3 in an online knockout race. If I could do that, I would be very proud of myself. I think that might be my peak. But what I really need to be doing is staying focused on this. Okay, I need to go. I've been sitting here talking for a minute. I'll be back later once I've bound this off and probably picked up stitches for the hood. So I'll see you then. I picked up for the hood and everything worked out well. It seems like it's a good size. I just followed all the instructions in the pattern, but with my numbers, and I am liking how it's working up. I have just started on the short rows, so there's a little bit of shaping happening. It's gonna be less noticeable on the hood than it is in the original traveler pattern because it's not gonna have that like strong line that it has in the textured pattern, but you can kind of see this starting to curve just a little bit. So there's 2 sections for the shaping and I'm on section 1. And actually I'm just gonna go ahead and show you my numbers for the hood, show you my spreadsheet, just so you can get a sense of how I'm working this up. So yes, there are 2 sections of 2 sets of short rows, and that is what shapes the hood. Okay, I also wanna say that I'm really liking this project now. I've totally come back around to it and I am getting very excited. My boyfriend has tried it on. It fits him really well. And it's so funny. Like, I think because it's so chunky, when I'm working on it, it just looks huge. Like it's just a massive sweater. And as I've been working on it, I'm looking at it and it doesn't look like it's going to fit, but he tried it on and it fits perfectly. He's very excited for it. I'm really excited for it. And I'm finally back on this project. The other thing that I think has sort of reinvigorated my motivation for this project is that I'm no longer working small circumference with these giant needles. And I hate small circumference knitting with big needles because there's such a big difference between the size of the needle and the size of the cable. And when you're doing something like magic loop or traveling loop, and you're having to like pull the needle through the stitches and then like turn the cable, and it just really exacerbates that problem for me, and I just don't have a good time with it. So now that I'm just working back and forth on the hood, it is actually fun to knit again. Also, because I'm so close to being done, this is just really exciting and I really want to finish it. 2 things I forgot to update you on yesterday. One is that this, pulling 2 strands from the same cake, is a pro move. I thought it would get all tangled, but this is actually easier to manage than pulling from 3 cakes. The second thing is that I did decide which bind off I wanted to use, and I bound off both of the sleeves. I did not end up going with the interlock bind off like I thought I would. Instead, I just looked up some stretchy 2x2 bind offs and I found Lori's twisty bind off, which is one that I've done before for a 1x1, but I had never done it for a 2x2 before. And it matches the long tail cast on because you are just binding off sort of in the standard bind off, but you are like twisting your needle around each time you switch from knits to purls. And I actually filmed a little tutorial of it. If it turns out, I will release it as a short at the same time that I post this video. I am not a short form content person. I like long form content, but I realized that tutorials as a short makes a lot of sense because you just want to see the technique and kind of nothing else. So anyway, hopefully that did actually turn out. But it's a very simple bind off. It is not overly stretchy, it doesn't flare, but it just has a little bit extra stretch because the just standard bind off can be pretty restrictive. And I did show my boyfriend and he really likes the look of this and the long tail cast on, so it all worked out. The update that I have for you today is that I am almost done with the hood, and here's how it's turning out. So I finished all the shaping and it is in the shape of a hood. I think it's the right size, I think it's the right shape. I guess I won't fully know until I bind off and he tries it on, but I did run it by him and it seems like this is turning out okay, so I might not have to redo it. I have gone back and forth the entire time that I've knit this thinking that I would need to totally restart, but and I was ready to do that, but I think I got it on the first try. I just picked up the stitches along the edges here, and now I'm gonna start on the encasement, which I haven't actually figured out in my spreadsheet yet, but all it should be is just figuring out how many rows that I need to knit and where to put the eyelet holes for the drawstring. Speaking of the drawstring, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do for that yet. I need to have a little consultation and we'll figure out what he wants. I think like a rainbow drawstring could be really cool. We also have been talking about the front pocket because that's what I'm going to work on next. And we are throwing out like an all black pocket or an all rainbow pocket. This is how much yarn I have left. So essentially just one skein since I'm holding all three together. This is what I have of what I'm currently working with. So I have quite a bit of yarn, probably didn't need to buy the extra skeins, but of course it's always better to have extra. And if I do end up working the drawstring or the pocket in like just the rainbow, then I'll have definitely needed the extra skein. So I have really enjoyed working on this hood and this project has definitely gotten better as I've worked on it. My excitement and motivation has just grown, but I am excited to get working on some of those other projects. It has been almost 2 weeks since I started this vlog, which it just happens. We ended up going on a little trip, so that took some time, and then work has been really busy. So I've been a little bit slower than I expected to on my whips, but that's just life and the way it works out. Today's Monday. I do have a very busy work week. However, we also have a holiday. This week is Juneteenth on Thursday, so I plan to get some knitting time in then. And in the meantime, just gonna get back to working on this and I'll update you when I'm done. Last night I finished knitting the rows for the encasement, so it's not done yet, but all the knitting is done. I just need to sew it up. And I remembered as I was knitting it that you need the drawstring before you can close it up because you encase the drawstring inside it when you do that. So I also got started on the drawstring. Here's how much I have done. And we decided on all black. I've gone through several iterations of this because currently I'm holding it with just 2 strands, and I tried a couple different things. I tried the same needle size as what I'm currently using with the 2 strands. I tried just 1 strand going down a couple needle sizes. I tried larger needles, and what I settled on was the 2 strands with a US 9, which is 2 sizes down from the 10.5 that I am currently knitting the encasement on, which is 1 size down from what the rest of the sweater is on. And this is the size of I-cord that it's creating, which I think is pretty proportional to the rest of the hoodie, and it does fit in the encasement. So that will be what the encasement looks like, and then that's the drawstring. Holding it up like that makes me think that it is a little thick. I think the problem is that going down to just 1 strand didn't seem substantial enough, but at the same time, I don't think you need like a really thick drawstring. Although if it is actually going to function as a drawstring, it is going to need something more substantial to work with this very thick hood. I don't know, am I overthinking it? Does this look fine? It's probably fine. I'm already this far in, which is like probably about halfway, and it goes really fast. So maybe I'll just finish it and see what it looks like. I just got off work. We are about to make dinner. We are going to make some bruschetta, but until we start dinner, I'm going to keep working on the drawstring. Things were going too well. I think I got it on the first try. So I finished the drawstring, I finished the encasement, and I closed it all up. And we have a couple of problems, actually a few problems, and I'll run you through all of them. But moral of the story is that I need to reknit the hood. I should say I'm deciding to reknit the hood. I don't technically need to. There's only like one thing that I need to redo, but I will not be satisfied if this isn't exactly how I want it, so I'm going to redo it. But first, let me walk you through what I've already done. So this is the hood, and it is hood shaped, and it's a decent size, but ultimately the problem is that it's a little bit too small. I kind of foreshadowed this happening when I mentioned that I was nervous about the shape and the scale of it, and that I wasn't sure if it was gonna quite work out, just taking the proportions of the sport weight hoodie and applying that to this super bulky weight. And it just didn't quite turn out the way that I wanted. So I do think the shape is fine, but I am going to make an adjustment. I want to add rows to this flat section. So there's a part of the hood where you're not doing any shaping, and I just want to add some more height to that section, maybe even just an inch. I also just want to add a little bit more shaping to the first section of short rows. So this hood is basically just a short row heel. If you've ever knit one of those, it's the same construction. And I found an article that explains how to do this. It's quite simple, and if you really want to know how to do it, you can read that article. But basically there are two sets of short rows, and in the first set, you are curving the fabric in a shape like this. And then in the second set, you are building the top of the hood to close it back out into this shape. So I want to add a few more rows in the first short row section that I'll then mirror in the second section, and that'll add just a little bit more volume to the hood. The next thing I need to address, you may have already seen, is that the encasement is just too bulky and it flares out like this. This might be mitigated a little bit by blocking, but I can already tell that this is just too much fabric, and blocking is not going to totally fix this. And there are a couple things about this that I am planning on fixing. So the first is just that my drawstring was too thick. That was my intuition, but I wanted to follow through and see, because proportionally, if you're looking at the hoodie, the drawstring doesn't appear too large. But the problem is that you need a lot of fabric to encase the drawstring, and it's too much fabric for the front of the hood. So all I'm going to do is reknit this in the exact same way, but I'm going to do a 2-stitch I-cord instead of a 3-stitch I-cord. Not sure why I didn't think about that at first, but anyway, I thought about it now. So I think that will reduce the bulk enough to make this work better. And then the other part of this is that I am not going to use 3 strands for the encasement. I think I'm gonna go down to 2 strands, and I threw out the idea of just doing the encasement in black, but my boyfriend was not as big of a fan of that idea, so I think I'm just gonna hold one of the rainbow and one of the black together, and I'll just adjust the gauge, go down a couple needle sizes, do a few more rows, that sort of thing. And I think that is really gonna help reduce the bulk. I also want to be more aware of how I'm picking up my stitches. So you pick up the stitches here, and I think that looks pretty messy, and I wanna try just picking up in the middle of a stitch instead of picking up the entire stitch. And then as well for the encasement all the way around, I just followed the pattern where you knit a stitch together with the stitch below it where you want to attach to, and then bind that stitch off, and you do that all the way around. And that's just adding too much bulk with this yarn. So I have a couple of options. I can bind off all the stitches and then sew it down, but I'm also gonna try just sewing the live stitches down. I've done that before on like a sweater neck, and it works well. I just don't know if it's gonna look great because there are parts of this hoodie where the inside is exposed. Last thing that I'm going to troubleshoot is that I don't love the look of the short row turn. It doesn't look bad. It just looks like a short row heel to me. And I feel like anybody who's not a knitter just like is not going to notice that or think about it in that way. But to me, it just looks like you're wearing a big sock heel on your head. So I did a deep dive into different short rows that you can try for short row heels on socks. And all that I really came up with is just doing the hood in reverse stockinette and then doing a wrap-in turn. But I'm not sure that that is going to look good enough to justify making this hood reverse stockinette. I mean, I like the reverse stockinette side, and I did get an okay from my partner that the hood would look good on this side. Another thing I just thought of is that I could keep the German short rows but knit the hood reverse stockinette, and that is what the short row turn would look like, which I do think looks better than the knit side. So maybe I'll do some experimenting with that. I also contemplated just knitting a completely different style of hood. You don't have to knit a hood like this. There are a few different ways to do it. And I consulted my Vogue knitting book because I figured there would be something about a hood in there, but all I could find was just this little blurb that said, if you want to knit a hood, you can just knit a rectangle and seam up the back. And that does work. That's a fine way to construct a hood, but it usually leaves a point. And I'm sure there are ways to get rid of the point, but I just don't want to troubleshoot all of that right now. So I'm going to stick to the short row hood, but I'm going to make those adjustments and reknit the hood. It just has to be done. You might think that the I-cord takes forever, but honestly, it's not too bad to do. I just like to do it on a double pointed needle. That definitely makes it go faster, but it's really not too bad. One last thing that I just remembered that I'll tell you about while I frog this. Well, actually, I'll show you before I frog it. So for the traveler pattern, the way that you close off this front section is that you sew down the edges of the encasement to this front bit here. So you like sew that down, and I can pop up a photo of my traveler so I can show you what I'm talking about. And I think that looks really nice. It is very polished and it's just a nice detail. But because this hood was on the smaller side, when we mocked that up and closed it off, it was just like way too tight. If I reknit the hood and it is the right size and that technique works, then I'm just gonna stick with that. If I reknit the hood and it's still just like on the smaller side, I think what I'm going to do is continue picking up stitches around the front, and that way this entire front can be open and it'll look something like this pattern that I found. And that'll just help open up that front section so that the hood can sit further back. So I've got a couple options here. Since my yarn is still attached, I think what I need to do is actually cut it here so that I can wind up a ball and it won't get tangled up with that yarn. I don't know if you've ever done that before, where you have like a lot of yarn that you need to unravel but you're still attached, and it can be really tempting to just like start creating a ball from it. I mean, I've done that many times, but usually what happens is the ball will start to twist around this strand and it can become really annoying. So I'm just gonna cut it and we'll reattach it. Okay, I feel better having talked through all of that with you. I finished the hood last night, and that was the night that I last filmed. And so I've just been thinking about what I was going to do, any like little break I had at work, but I didn't quite nail it down until I had a chance to like do some research and figure out what my options were. And honestly, I feel really good about redoing the entire hood, but I am always pro frog. Like, I will always frog something if I'm not happy with it, or if it just didn't turn out exactly how I wanted. I mean, you know, I shouldn't say always, like there are certain circumstances in which I'd rather just continue. I really try not to get caught in the sunk cost fallacy, which I feel like is really easy to do when you're knitting because it just takes so much time. Hey, 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 hey. My cat is very excited that there's yarn flying around. It's very easy to invest a lot of time in something that you're knitting and then feel like, well, I've spent, 10 hours working on this and I don't want to just rip it out. But I try to look at the piece as a whole. So like, yes, maybe I spent, 5 or 10 hours working on the hood, but I have spent 40 hours working on the entire sweater. And I know that if he wears this hoodie a lot, which he will, and every time he wears it, I cringe because I know that it could have done something better, then that just doesn't sound like a good time to me. Like, it sounds like a better time to just reknit it. But I also know that's not everybody's take. That's the way my brain works. It does help though that this is like a super bulky yarn. So if I spent like 60 hours knitting something, I would not just like casually frog that entire thing just to reknit it. But with something like this, it's just gonna be easier to reknit it than it is trying to retroactively fix it. So yeah, my cat is just sitting here purring. While I still have you here, another thing that I haven't talked about yet is that I am combining superwash and non-superwash yarn, which is kind of wild to me that I have gotten comfortable doing that because years ago I would never. And I'm not saying that it's like a good thing to do. I might run into some issues, but I actually haven't had too bad of luck combining it, especially when you're doing it like this, where the non-superwash yarn is kind of supporting the superwash yarn. And I did block all of my swatches and I tested things out, and I blocked my swatches in like pretty hot water, and I'm only gonna block and wash this sweater in cold water. So I don't think that it will turn out completely horrible, but I could still regret that decision. The other thing with superwash, I mean, obviously you can throw it in the dryer if it stretches out too much, but you can't do that if you're combining it with something that's going to felt. But I was going to say the other thing with superwash is that it might grow a little bit when you get it wet, but it will often kind of form back into place as long as you're not stretching it while it's wet. So if it does want to do that a little bit, I think that I can kind of squish it back into place, but it's going to be an experiment. Okay, now that I have ripped this out, you can see the shape that was created by the first set of short rows. So here's the straight section that I'm talking about that I'm going to add some height to. And then when I started doing the short rows, this is the shape that it created. So it's just like this curve. And then when you do the other set of short rows, you sort of pull the top in and the sides in, and you add some fabric. You add like a wedge of fabric here. So yeah, it's just like a sock heel, and it's quite simple to do. Okay, I'm gonna continue frogging this. It is already almost 9 p.m., so I probably won't have another update for you tonight. So I'll see you tomorrow. I forgot to mention that another way I'm going to make this hood a little bigger is just by picking up more stitches, and I just finished unraveling, so that is what I'm going to do. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. I have good news and bad news. The bad news is that I overcorrected and the hood is now very large. The good news is that we've decided to accept that. I'm almost done with it, and this is what it looks like from the back. I think proportionally it matches the rest of the sweater, and he hasn't been able to like fully try it on yet, but I think once he tries it on, it will be essentially the right size. It just looks very big to me right now. I really like the reverse stockinette. I think that turned out really cool, and I'm working on the encasement. As I was saying, I'm working on the encasement, which I've decided to do in just stockinette, and I'm almost done. I have, I think, 2 more rows and then I'll sew it up. But you can get a sense of the size of the hood. I mean, it's quite big. It will cinch in a little bit, so like this will kind of sit up a little bit as it's being worn, but like here's the hood. So it ended up being quite a bit bigger. I only added 3 stitches. I picked up an additional 3 stitches, and then I added a little under 1.5 inches, probably closer to like 1.25 inches of height to the bottom section. So it didn't feel like I was doing much. In fact, when I restarted the hood, I actually thought it was going to be too small again, but because this gauge is just so large, any small changes really affect the finished result. So that is just the challenge with this gauge. But he really likes it. He doesn't think it's too big, and he co-signs, we're good. I'm not redoing this hood. I think that would destroy me. So we're shipping it. It is close to being done, and it's a big sweater. So I've talked about how I reached a point of like major fatigue with this project, and then working on it again and him trying it on and seeing it like come together really motivated me. What's interesting is that right now, I don't really mind working on this project still. Like, I am still excited about it and I want to keep working on it so that I can finish it. But I realized that I think I'm hitting a level of fatigue with talking about it. It's done. It has been a little over a week since I last checked in. I just finished this and it fits. It obviously doesn't fit me, but it fits him. He loves it. It actually fits him so well. The hood is a little big. If I could go back and do it again, which I won't anytime soon, maybe in the future, then I would probably meet somewhere in the middle as far as the 2 hoods that I did knit. But it doesn't appear too large necessarily. Like, I think it works with the oversized style of the sweater, and it fits pretty well. The rest of the sweater fits great, and so we're calling it good. I think the hood looks especially the right size when it's down. When you put it on from the back, you can kind of see the extra fabric at the bottom that kind of scrunches up. But at the same time, I think it's just an oversized hood. I don't think it's out of proportion with the rest of the sweater. And the most important thing is that my boyfriend loves it. He is incredibly stoked to wear this, and he looks really good in it. You won't get to see that because he is not going to be on camera, but I'm here to model it for you. However, I'm gonna take it off because we are in a heat advisory and I was sweating before I put this on. And this thing is 3 strands of worsted weight held together. This is heavy and warm, but I think it is like the coziest thing that I've ever made. Okay, I can put these back on too. 1 second. Now that it's done, I think this falls into the category of one of the coolest things I've ever made. I am really glad I knit this sweater, even though it was a challenge for me. It's something very different. And I think it's fun to just do something that you wouldn't normally do. And that's totally what this project was for me. And I think it helped that I was making this for somebody else, and somebody who was here every part of the process and encouraging me and telling me that it was great, and also helping me figure out the details when I needed to change things, because it really helped me stay grounded when I was questioning everything. The creative process for me is very much filled with a lot of self-doubt and questioning and overthinking things. And this project definitely had me pushing through a lot of that in order to finish it. And I did, and I'm really happy that I did. But now that it's fully done and I have all of this perspective, let me walk you through what I went through to get here. So obviously I restarted the hood and I made it a little bit too big this time. And I contemplated frogging it again, but as you saw, I was not in a good headspace for doing that. And I'm really glad I didn't, because there just wasn't really a reason to. It's maybe a little too big, but it doesn't detract from the rest of the sweater, and I think it really does look and fit totally fine. That really is just me getting caught up in my perfectionism and wanting this sweater to be perfect because it's a gift, and I want every little detail to be exactly as I envisioned. But that really was getting in the way of finishing this sweater, and I knew that if I didn't use the last of my motivation to just get this off the needles, then I would probably have a sweater that was 95% done for months and just be thinking about it, and I really didn't want that. So I decided to stick with the hood size, and after picking up for the encasement, finishing that, and seeing how nice that came together, I really started to like it again. The 2-stitch I-cord for the drawstring was definitely the play. I think it fits the rest of the sweater really well. It matches it nicely. I like the all black. And then I had to work on the pocket, which you can see I went with a classic hoodie, like kangaroo style patch pocket. I redid the pocket, I think 4, maybe 5 times. So again, some perfectionism coming in, but the placement and the size of the pocket like really changed the look of this hoodie, and it was to the point where if it wasn't exactly the way it needed to be, it was gonna look silly. So I restarted it a lot, but ultimately what I decided to do was pick up stitches along the front. So if you can see, this is where the side seam is. And so I started a good maybe 3 or 4 inches from the side. So that's like where it's centered. And then just a few rows above the ribbing at the bottom, I picked up those stitches and I knit a few inches straight without any shaping. And the biggest trick with this pocket is that we didn't want it to be as bulky as the rest of the sweater because that was just going to add a lot of bulk. So I decided to hold 2 strands of yarn instead of 3. So it's a little bit less dense, which for wearing it and just visually, I think was the right way to go. But that meant that the pocket is at a different gauge than the rest of the sweater. And I had to figure out that when I picked up the stitches, I needed to pick up 4 stitches for every 3 stitches on the body. And the way that I did that was just picking up the right leg of 2 stitches and then picking up both legs of the 3rd stitch. And that worked out really well. Then I had to figure out the shaping, and I tried a couple different things out and settled on a very basic solution, which is just doing a 45-degree angle. So that is a decrease every other row, and doing a 2-stitch I-cord for the edging, so I didn't have to finish anything. All I had to do was sew up the top here and then also the little pieces on the sides. So I think that resulted in a nicely shaped and sized pocket that is also very functional. And I really like that it's in reverse stockinette that matches the outside of the hood. We were hanging out with some friends the other day who don't know anything about knitting, and I was showing them this. And one of them immediately noticed that the hood was in a different stitch pattern, and they thought that was really cool. And that made me feel much better about my decisions. So that's the sweater. I am really happy that I pushed through, I finished it. I think it turned out really cool, and it's gonna get a ton of wear in the winter. It's kind of like a coat in how much it insulates you. It's definitely one of the more interesting and unique things that I've made. I am happy that it's done, and I want to move on to other things now. It is finally time to start working on another whip, and I'm gonna work on my socks because I think this is a quicker project to finish than the brioche hat, and I really need a quick win right now. By the way, I'm out on my patio, and I was filming a vlog a few months ago where we were having our patio cover built, but it got delayed and there were various things happening and I wasn't able to show you, but it is almost done. We spent Sunday cleaning up, and despite what it looks like, this is the most aesthetic background at the moment. We definitely haven't designed this space or put much time and money into it yet. So as a reminder, here's what yarn I have left to work with. And if I need to, I will frog some of this leg to make sure that the leg lengths match. Got interrupted. If you can't tell, which hopefully you can't because I have tried to hide it for the most part, we are doing a lot of things right now. We are trying to finish a very long, intense house remodel that we are at the very tail end of, but it's just been a lot to get the rest of it done. I don't really have the time to film, but I'm just forcing it. Anyway, back to the socks. So the first sock, the leg length is 6 inches, and I am currently at 2 inches, which means I have 4 inches to knit. And I think this is going to go so fast, especially because I am ready to be working with small needles again. These are US zeros, which is 2mm. I really need to like lock in the US to millimeter conversion. I don't know why I haven't done that yet. So I'm working with fingering weight yarn, small needles. This is my comfort zone. I really need this project right now. And it's also fun because I am alternating, so I'm doing stripes. So every 4 rounds I switch which yarn I'm working with. And it's been really fun to see the color changing yarn change. So as I mentioned at the start of this video, I spun this yarn for the 3-ply 2-ways challenge. And in that challenge, you spin 2 different yarns. One of them is a traditional 3-ply and the other is a chain ply. So you get one yarn that gradually changes color, and then you get another yarn that's much more heathered and integrated. It was really fun to spin, and it's been fun to knit up into socks as well. And I definitely would have finished this project if I didn't have other projects that I needed to prioritize. I think I'm just gonna sit out here for another like 10 or so minutes and keep knitting. I brought my headphones out because I'm listening to an audiobook right now, but I think I'm not gonna listen to it. I just need a little moment of peace and mental clarity. So I think I'm just gonna sit here with my thoughts and knit on my sock. I got really motivated and I finished my socks. It took me about a day and a half of my usual knitting time. I was motivated, I finished them, I bound them off, and I wove in the ends. So these are now fully done. I'm really happy with how they turned out. Like I said earlier, this was just a fun challenge. It was a fun little experiment to do. And I started these in April, so it's really nice to finally get them off the needles. I also think that this is the best fleegle heel that I've done. I have knit a couple pairs, 3 pairs I think now, with the fleegle heel, and there's been some troubleshooting to get it to fit correctly, and I think this is my best one. I do think that they're a little big on me. There are parts in the yarn that I spun that are closer to a sport weight. There are also some parts that are a little bit thinner than a fingering weight, so I was not fully consistent, especially with my chain ply, but that's totally fine. Anytime I spin a yarn and I am like in the ballpark of what I was trying to do, I feel very accomplished. So I'm very proud of these and happy to have made them. This fiber is from Hello Yarn. It's a Romney, and it was my first time spinning a Romney. I really liked the spinning process. As a yarn, it is quite rough, which makes it perfect for a pair of socks. And yeah, I think this project turned out really nice. I can't wait to take some photos. Holding them up like this, I'm realizing actually how similar they are. When I was knitting them, I did not think that was the case, but now that they're done, they actually kind of match. So I'm very excited to be done. We are making progress. Oh, and this is how much yarn I had left. So I did not need to shorten the leg, luckily, but I did use up pretty much the entirety of my skein, which is a huge win. So these just turned out so well. And next, I am moving on to my worsted Harlow. So here's where I'm at. I think that I want my brim to be about this size, maybe just a little bit thinner. So I need to knit this double and then knit the hat. So I do have quite a long ways to go, but now that I'm giving myself permission to work on this, I think I'm going to work on it pretty frequently at night. It's pretty mindless, so I'll be able to get a lot done. I can also work on it during some meetings and just little breaks that I have throughout my week. And I'm pretty excited. I love brioche. I really want to work on this and get it done. This is how much I have left of my skein. It seems like enough, but in the back of my head, always, I am just a little bit worried about yarn amounts, especially with yarn that I've spun. And I really like the tubular cast on that I did for this hat. And I love the way the colors knit up. I think I'm really gonna like this hat. Ta-da! I finished it. I was able to work on this in a lot of work meetings, and that really helped me get to the finish line. And I think it turned out so cute. I'm gonna try this on even though it is sweltering in here. Was I wearing this shirt in the last clip I filmed? No, I think it was a different light blue shirt. Here it is, it's done. I think it's really cute. I think the height is perfect. The brim is a good size. I contemplated making it taller, but I think it turned out cute. And I do have this much yarn left over, so the yardage was not a concern. That is the way the decreases worked out, so I think it looks really clean. And I feel really good for having finished my whips, and now I can cast on something new. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for watching, commenting, appreciate you. And I'll see you soon.